the nature of your emergency?
Welcome back to the Tactical Living Podcast. I'm your host, Ashley Welton, joined by Sergeant Welton. And how are you?
I'm excellent.
So we did an interview with Brent Colbert, and I remember when I interviewed him, something that I shared was we were talking about leadership or lack thereof, any kind of admin within the place that you work, in particular as a first responder. And I told him, coming from the other end as the wife of a first responder, anytime that I know that you have a superior who's a jackass and cocky and up there on the high horse, it makes me feel incredibly uncomfortable having them as your quote partner, because I don't have faith in them being able to show up and be a safe partner to you as you're out there patrolling on the streets.
Yeah, it's definitely interesting, especially because those people, a lot of them have a false front for themselves. Of they have this ego associated to them to be able to have that false confidence to where they can handle anything, and the reality is like, I don't know.
I'm glad that you used that term, because I wanted to talk about the invincible officer myth today. And I think that a lot of people, especially if you're a newer, younger officer, you get caught up in, I just completed the academy and I'm so badass because I finished my 6 months, some of them not even 6 months. And, you're probably at the peak of your fitness that you've been in your entire life. And you had this bravado of the new crisp uniform, and, it's a great accomplishment, and all of that is amazing. However, what it also does sometimes is it puts on this false sense of invincibility with you now becoming a new police officer.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting, especially for this younger generation that's coming up. You really see that more and more, and I think one of the big myths with it is it's great to have that confidence. It's great to have that bravado, but you don't know the legalities behind what you can and cannot do yet. And you think, the academy is going to teach you all that stuff. But when in a real world scenario, there's so many different dynamics, and they just don't know.
I think too, it's this unspoken cultural expectation, because from day one, you're told you need to be tough, don't show weakness. And I think that this mindset almost creates this emotional bottleneck over time. I was watching a video of an officer who was out on a suspected DUI. And it turns out that the suspect was also a police officer. And something that was so humbling that I saw was this police officer who pulled him over said that, long story short, after he does, all the field sobriety and everything, he says, you know what, man, I went through this 2 years ago. And it turns out, and they cross-checked it, that this officer actually was arrested for a DUI. It must have been obviously not on duty. And however it turned out, he didn't lose his job over it. And so it was actually really humbling to see, because you can hear in his calm and very compassionate demeanor as he's going throughout the entire interaction with this other officer, how bad he felt about it, because he went through it 2 years ago as well. And, from doing that, the suspect opened up and talked about how he was going through a divorce, and all he cared about was his kids, and his wife wants to take the kids away, and, and it created more humanity in that interaction. Not to say that as a police officer, you always need to share your shit with the suspects, but it showed me that he was not up there on his high horse. And just the level of empathy, I think, is so important to remember about yourself when you put on that uniform, and then to be able to carry it with you during these interactions, even if you're not sharing anything personal.
Yeah, I think empathy is the best word for that. And I try, using that in anything and everything I do. And I don't care what the situation is, whether you've been in that situation or not. It's being empathetic, whether it's the suspect, it's the victim, whoever it may be. If you can show that, they're going to give you the information not only that you need for your investigation, but they're also going to have a different level of respect for you after you're all said and done.
And here's another problem with being that invincible officer. When you're a high performer, you're often the one who's leaned on by peers and leadership and your kids and your family, maybe your parents, and that actually leaves no room for your own struggles.
Yeah, it really... If you're and this is, it's kind of a joke that I say at work. It's, the harder you work, the more work you're going to have added on to you. And when you're getting stretched thin all the time, if you're not finding that balance, if you're not finding times to say when it's okay to say no and be able to create that balance for yourself, it becomes a struggle.
What's crazy too is that there's often this fear of any kind of consequences because of you being human. And that could be, okay, well, if I show weakness, I'm not going to be promoted, or I maybe can't put in for that detail, or whatever the thing is. But what I have found is that usually that officer who feels that way, he has one or two confidants that he's actually like sharing his shit with, right? Unloading with. And so to everybody else, he's trying to be that invincible officer. But in reality, he's actually venting on the side.
And so, and that's super important. You have those outlets. So I have a friend at work who I definitely we've talked a lot, and he leans on me a lot for this stuff. And one thing I said when he was promoted, I said, look, you come to me whenever you need something. Know who you can trust and who you can't trust. And I'm not saying that like you can't trust your partners. I'm saying that as you have those close people, because some people will talk too much. And when you're talking to everybody and expressing those concerns or expressing your thoughts and trying to figure stuff out, some people will use that information against you. And that's why you have to know who the people are in your circle, compared to the ones that are going to use those comments, those questions, those concerns against you in the future.
Yeah, because when I see somebody who they're always fine all the time, right? I've been guilty of this before. However, I'm not guilty of what I'm about to share, and that is that those people that you think are all fine all of the time, they actually don't always realize that the true strength comes in asking for help or admitting when things aren't amazing for you, and to be able to be vulnerable and to also do it in a way to where as you continue to rise in the ranks, you notice that leadership should model this kind of concept openly. And not to say you need to be too soft. I'm not talking about like the newer soft feely kind of generation. I'm talking about the real valid points that, you do feel a certain way or something. All the things are crashing down, like the example of that officer going through a divorce, and that's why he was drinking and driving. Not that that's okay, but, that was all the shit. And to be open, raw, and vulnerable, if not with somebody else, at least with yourself, to be able to say, wow, like this is what I'm going through and I need some help. What is the next step?
Yeah, recognizing that and being able to figure out those next steps is super important. And having your allies, having that support system, being able to, further yourself, because the more you hold it in, the more detrimental it's going to be.
I think too, a lot of people think that you need to go all in with something in order to get better, to feel better, to make the problem resolve. And it's not true. I think that one of the coolest things that we can do is to build in these micro recovery routines. Clint, you've lost a lot of weight. You've been eating a lot better. Your schedule is no longer working on graveyards. Like you're a totally different man, during this last part of the year than you were during the entire duration of the year. And a lot of that has to do with changes, some in our control, some out of our control. But the most important thing is actually building in those micro recovery routines, even down to focusing more on eating protein. So now we're more alert and more vigilant and, feeling better about ourselves, and even something as simple as drinking electrolytes. This is the first year that we've been really ritualistic with that. And that's something small that actually makes a really big difference.
Yeah, having those healthy routines, whether it's your diet, whether it's finding outlets to be able to have that work-life balance, being able to get out of your normal mindset and just being able to shut off your mind and chill. It's so important.
And before we wrap this up, something else that I wanted to point out, it's a tool that I like to use anytime that I haven't touched base with somebody in a long time, somebody who, let's say my circle is filled with super high performers. Like I am, every day I wake up and I'm so lucky to be able to, look at my phone, see the people who have reached out, making sure that, something I heard recently was if you want a village, you have to be a villager. And that means that you have to actually put in love and dedication into your village. And so I told you, Clint, my new thing lately, it was just scheduling out emails that I send. If I have some time the night before and I want to touch base with somebody, like I'll write a few emails and then schedule them to be sent the next day. But now, with the iPhone having the incorporation of scheduling out your text messages, I do that a lot now. And so I think that if you know somebody who is that top performer, even something as simple as, hey, life is so hard for a lot of people right now. So I'm just popping into your inbox just to check to see how are you doing.
Yeah, it's a great way to not only keep your circle, growing and keep your circle together, but being able to have those conversations and to check on one another. It's so important to do that, and it's not only good for you as an individual, it's good for the people that you're checking in on.
I hope you've gotten some value out of today's episode. If you have, do us a favor, drop a review, subscribe down below, and as always, know that I'm sending you a long, tight hug from my home to yours.